Okay, so bit of a recovery this morning after that horrible loss, so I'll just win one more maybe, and then okay, that'd be cool. Okay. Has Thingy won any more games? The guy that victimised me earlier. Are we still at 22-20 or playing some bullet here? His bullet game. I wonder what his bullet game's like. Let's have a laugh. Seems okay so far. Not sure about E4. Yes, the old queen sack line. Okay, not particularly high quality. Yes, and he plays on. Yeah, interestingly. That's okay. Right, so whitetiger 1882. Let's try it Sicilian again. Maybe even the poison pawn again. Just want to improve on it from last time. The opponent's not playing into that anyway. I think G6 here, dragon against H3. Okay, knight c6, take knight d5, or h5, g5, knight h7, h5, is that any good? I'll try h5. If g5 knight h7 looks good to me, sort of. Dark square weaknesses. Okay, knight c6. Knight c6 soon. Yeah, knight c6. If the knight moves, bishop e6, queen d7 on this. Or bishop g4 here. I don't mind f3, a weakness. Right, so queen d7 here, or knight e5, queen d7, knight e5. Knight e5, there's knight c4, that looks a bit juicy. If f3, bishop d7, I think knight e5 actually now. That knight c4 looks juicy. Okay, so let's put like B5 here, and just in case knight C6 if he moves this knight first. Rook C8, I think Rook C8, F4 knight D7, or even Queen C7, that's knight D5. Okay, Queen A5, might be knight D5. Rook C8 anyway, I think there's knight D7 minimum. Possibly. Okay. So Queen C7, knight D5. What about E6 just to stop that? The bishop gets trapped. Okay. Potentially creating some more weaknesses here. So, how to exploit them? Knight C5, Queen A5. B5, knight C5. B5, B4, knight C5. Get this knight's out of the game actually. I could try and get that back or play F6 at some point. Knight C5 here, bit of pressure on E4 for the moment. Maybe D5 coming up, or E5. Actually, this plan Queen D7 bishop H3 just to knock out defensive E4 here. It's a bit more vulnerable after that knight E2. With B4 there's always knight A4, so Queen D7 bishop H3. Get this bishop H3 and weaken some squares around the king, weaken E4 a bit. Later maybe F6 and takes, weaken some dark squares, crack past pawn, or get E5 for the bishop. Maybe bishop E5 here, in fact. Well, F6 is not really a threat at the moment. In fact, can I just take on F5? Bishop G6, then knight E4. No, he's got the knight. No. Okay. If I take on E2 here, this bishop, I don't know. Or bishop E5. Bishop E5 stops knight G3 for a moment. There's bishop F4. I think bishop E5. I've got bishop E5. I like the squares, getting some squares. Possibly B5, Queen B7, just on E4. Queen B7, that Who game recently had the Queen on B7, just eyeing E4. Might be good here, especially after this blockade of the E pawn with the bishop on E5. So B5, Queen B7. Looks good. Bishop F4, maybe Rook D8, so Tate. I'm on D2, pressure on D file. White looks to be sort of playing aggressively, but there's weaknesses. B5 Queen B7 plan remains for a moment, depending on the opponent's next move. So look earlier in the game for a moment. So h3, I reacted with the dragon and played h5, trying to provoke fixing of pawns, which worked. Ah, he's moved. Okay, so b5 here, I think, going for this queen b7. Mind you, if I have a take, then it's a horrible pin. If I follow up d5, it might not be so bad. So that's still potentially a threat, knight e4. I don't think this is a problem. Knight's holding things together at the moment. So how does he defend e4? If it's going to be d5 after, it could actually be quite useful to nerve that pawn. If knight c3, okay, knight c3 would have done it. Knight c3 does it, in fact. Okay, knight c3. Plays knight c3. Back on d5. I think b4, knight d5, e6. I think I'm asking for trouble. Take. There isn't. Oh, there might be knight f6. Two rooks there on f6. So this could be good. Knight c3. Okay, it's on g6 instead. I take on e4 here, surely. Attack the queen. Actually protects g6, queen on e4. I'll do that. So I'm protecting g6. Okay, there's knight e6. Probably I should slow down around here. But knight e6, I don't know, rook. I'll slow down after now. Knight e6. Bishop e6, knight takes, there's bishop h2 minimum, queen e6, if I want to get rid of the knights. Now do I need to go with that? Bishop e6, knight e6, bishop h2, do I need to do that? If rook h2, there's rook f1, king takes, actually there's queen. No, I should take that, There's rook f2 here, is that any good? Okay, no, or there's bishop h3, if I want to lose the exchange. There's queen g4 after that though. Bishop h3 looks like big vacuum for white. I wonder what's simplest. In fact, take, there's bishop c3 attacking the queen here and attacking e6. Rook takes f8, I can play rook takes. Interesting. Or knight takes, no, that's losing tactically. Bishop takes d4, knight takes d4. Back to this safety option. Bishop e6 and bishop h2 is very safe, surely. I'll just do this. Safety option. Just to get rid of the knight. Get back onto the light squares anyway. Queen g4, queen h3, depending on if he plays king takes. So bishop c3, yeah, that's asking for trouble because I'm overloaded on f8. I think bishop h2 just trying to anything better last minute. Check. Rook f2, there's queen f2, then it'll be queen f7 potentially. Don't think that's that dangerous though. I think bishop h2 is simple and strong. Just get rid of this knight. There is a question about queen h4 first, then queen g4 to take the knight. So if king takes queen h4, king moves queen g4, then queen e6. That nabs a pawn actually, yes. If rook f2, rook f1 disrupts the king, so I think I will do that. I think I will take first, then go for the check, then take on e6. Past h pawn, always good. So we 2 pawns. Okay, and this is anything better with rook f1. I think taking on e6 is okay here. I could actually, rook f1 wouldn't have been that bad. Why didn't I play rook f1? Muppets. Okay, doesn't matter. So 2 pawns up, time advantage. Bishop could be dangerous though. What about queen f7, or if rook f2, queen g4, aiming for e5 at some point, or rook c2. There's no rook f1 after queen f5. I think queen f5 looks safe enough. There's no rook f1, rook f2, there's queen g4, maybe d5 or e5, there's queen d6 though, so that's a bit of a problem. What about h4, h3? There's rook f2. Okay, still needs to be careful here. e5 here though is better with tempo, shutting out the bishop, and then queen maybe e6 just to protect d6. So queen e6 and then rook f5 or something. Rook f5, then double up rooks. I think queen e6 just protecting squares and d6. So rook f5, rook f8, or even d5 just hitting the bishop. I think rook f5 is logical, just putting pressure on g5. Then rook f8, then d5, but probably not e4 because bishop d4, I don't want that. If he ever takes, there's rook c6 here, which there's a check. So for the moment, I might just d5, rook a6, rook c6, d5. It's not really going to this pin, is he? There's bishop d4. Hang on, bishop d4. I'm giving him counterplay. Bishop d4. Oh dear. Bit of counterplay on the dark squares. Didn't want that. Okay, it's happened. Protecting a6, good news. If I get to play rook f7, I'll just have to shield g7 here. Rook f7, rook f8. Make sure this diagonal doesn't get too dangerous. Actually, that is a danger factor now. Whoops. Oh dear. Let's think about this. Exchange of queens is not a danger factor after that. Welcome the exchange of queens. So rook f5 here. Okay, what's going on here? I mean, he's just cracked up. No problem with g7 or getting mated on the diagonal. So wealth of options, which are quite easy to play. I think knight here to e6 and d4. It's about rook c3 or just b4. I'm putting pawns on dark squares. Well, just taking a rook here, rook c4 for d4. Pawns marching. Can't see the back row being that much of an issue with rook f8 available. I'll leave the knight on e6. Let's take with the king. Try and put my pieces on light squares away from the bishop. There's e3 and knight g5 coming up. So e3 here. Yep, he's resigned here. Okay. White tiger. So, alright, so that makes it 4 wins this morning, 1 horrible, quick loss. Hope you enjoyed that one. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.